Welcome to the virtual career guide panel, and thank you all for joining us. My name is Fred Obiero, and I'll be the host and moderator for today's webinar. I'm the Managing Director of Client Solutions and Training here at ProSociety, and I'm very excited especially to be hosting this session with the panelists that we have today. I want to thank everyone for registering for this event. We received a ton of questions from you that we'll be covering in today's discussion. We may not be able to cover all those questions, but we'll do our best in the limited time that we have. I'd also like to mention, and I was talking about this before we started the session, that recording of this webinar will be available on YouTube. We'll try and make it available within 48 hours, and I encourage everyone to share with your social networks so that we can get more people to watch it and at least take something away from this webinar. There's a lot of good insights that will be shared by the panel that we have today, and it's applicable to everybody in any industry. We know the high unemployment rate that's affecting the country right now, and there's a lot of good information that's gonna be taken out of this. So please share this once we have the recording available to all your peers. We'll also have time set aside for some Q&A towards the end of the webinar so that all our live viewers that we have on today, use the question icon that's at the bottom of your screen. I think everybody has it at the bottom. Not sure how it looks like on the phone, but I suppose it's also going to be at the bottom. With that said, I'll do quick intros, then I'll let Priscilla and Toni provide a brief overview of their background and their companies, all right? So with us today, we have the Director of Organizational and Talent Development at Health Choice Network. We have Priscilla Torres. And we also have the Senior Director of HR and Talent Strategy, and that's Toni Pruitt. So glad to have you on both. Priscilla, please give us a brief description of your role and company overview at Hcn.
It would be my pleasure. So hello, everyone. My name is Priscilla Torres, and I serve as the Director of Organizational and Talent Development at Health Choice Network. I've been with the organization for the last 8 years. In addition to that, I am also an adjunct professor for Broward College, and I have been teaching. I've been an educator there for the last 4 years. And at Health Choice Network, we provide strategic initiatives and support for our community health centers. We support across health centers across the nation, across 19 states, and we impact approximately 2.2 million patients. So thank you again, Fred and the team, for allowing us to be here today.
Awesome. Toni, why don't you give us an overview of yourself, your background, and your role at Farelogix?
Sure. Hi, I'm Toni Pruitt, and I'm honored to be on this panel discussion today. As the Senior Director of HR and Talent Strategy at Farelogix. Farelogix is we are a technology company, and we provide software solutions for the airlines. Very exciting and very tumultuous right now, but we remain very busy. And I'm responsible for recruiting and hiring and everything people. And that's the workforce, that is employee engagement, that is management training, writing job descriptions, you name it. Anything people, my hands are all over it. So thank you I'm excited to be here.
Thanks. Thank you both for being here with us. I'll start on with the questions. Priscilla, this will be for you. With lots of employees working from home now, studies have found that some employees feel alone and isolated, and those studies have been conducted this year. What actions have you taken from a leadership standpoint to address this issue so that your employees feel connected to one another?
So that's a great question. So certainly these are very difficult, unprecedented times. You know, we've not been prepared to have to deal with a pandemic, and most of us have not ever worked remotely before. So there's certainly been a lot of changes that employees or the workforce has had to adapt very, very quickly. Also with that comes, that sense of isolation or that disconnect with our colleagues or with others. So it's so important from a leadership standpoint that we really foster that environment of constant collaboration, finding opportunities to bring your staff together. At Health Choice Network, we have weekly huddle meetings. So most of our leaders either meet every day, every other day, or on a weekly basis, and they ensure that all of their team members are having this kind of visual interactions with one another, and that they're addressing all of the issues, concerns, But more importantly, it's also important that leaders understand that it is our obligation as leaders to take care of our staff and to have that sense of not only flexibility, empathy, which is my favorite word to use now, but we really have to be genuine in our interactions and reach out to our folks on a one-to-one basis. Make sure that they have all the resources that they need, all the tools that they need to be successful to work remotely. Some folks are dealing with, some things that they've never dealt with in the past, whether that's, family members being sick or family members passing away, or, balancing that home life, work, all at the same time, spouses, kids, dogs, you name it. So it could be really stressful for some folks. So it's important that, we really just set the tone and that we take a step back and that we take a pulse of our staff. At Health Choice Network, our leaders are very engaged with our team members. We ensure that, they're constantly reaching out to them, asking, questions just to make sure of, hey, is everything okay? Something as simple as that can come a long way to staff. And also doing surveys. Surveys is a great way of just taking a pulse of how do employees feel, how engaged were they, before the whole COVID situation happened. And as we're getting acclimated and adapted to working remotely, it's having that consistent surveying of staff and addressing concerns and adapting and changing, the way that we operate so that we can be more effectively. Another few things that we've done is that we hold, our president and CEO holds town hall meetings bi-weekly, and we make it fun. We not only, address all the items that we have to address, but we're able to visually see one another. We play games of, either trivia games or, we do employee recognitions. We celebrate our new hires. We make everything just an excitement and a celebration, because we're all in this together. We're all facing the same issues, but we really want to ensure that folks don't feel that sense of isolation and that sense of disconnect. So those are just a few recommendations that we've implemented and have been very successful.
That's great, and we can relate with that. I think when you mentioned that your CEO and president does this bi-weekly town halls where you guys engage in games and things of that nature, we actually do the same thing here at ProSociety, and it's actually something that we're starting to see, the fruits of that implementation. Toni, I'm curious to see, how do you guys handle that from a leadership perspective at Farelogix?
Sure. Well, the good news is I'm happy to hear that you're doing the same things, right? So I know it's best practices already, right? But like most companies, all of us really, we went from a 5-day work in the office to a remote workforce pretty much overnight, right? So we promote video meetings in lieu of phone calls. We make so that we can make sure that people see each other and feel connected. It's actually a rule on our management and leadership calls: cameras on and microphones off and mute so that you can participate. And often our CEO will ask people randomly about their department and how they're doing. It's more off the cuff, and people can just be honest about what's happening that day. Also, the quick engagement surveys we're also doing. Surveys and town halls for us used to be a quarterly thing, and now it is bi-weekly. And they're quick, 2 or 3 questions that are relevant. How are you feeling? What are your concerns about coming back to the office? And it's anonymous feedback. And so in those town halls, we discuss the anonymous feedback that comes back, and we build on that. We come back to questions that are asked and really make it relevant to what's happening. Also, I promote wellness programs. For example, May was mental health awareness, right, month. And so we hosted virtual yoga classes and meditation classes at lunchtime. And we promote our EAP program. We have great benefits at Farelogix. So that's the Employee Assistance Program. And I reached out to people to say, I know there's a lot of volume with the EAP program. If you're having a problem connecting with someone, let me know. And I reached directly out to our benefit provider to let them know, here's where it's heavy, here's where certain people need to be addressed. We also have the teledoc benefit, which is great. If you're not feeling well, if someone in your home is not feeling well, you can make a phone call. You don't have to make a doctor's appointment. Often they can prescribe something. You can talk to a doctor via video. So there's a great benefits we've had. I've also hosted virtual happy hours and bingo games to keep people engaged as well. And, oh, I just lost the video. Not sure what happened here. Okay, it's back, sorry. And something that was pretty cool we did, April was Take Your Child to Work Day, and we were all home. So what we did was I asked everyone to, if they had school-age children, to do a video, a minute or less, with their child introducing themselves, what they want to be when they grow up. And my favorite question is, what would you do to make the world a better place? So we compiled these videos and we blasted them out. We're about 200 strong, so we can control a lot of this. It's not thousands, but you know. But I thought if we did have different offices, that's something they could do regionally as well. So it was great. We blasted it out, and people got to see people's children. And there was a 4-year-old that wanted to be a paleontologist. I couldn't say the word paleontologist when I was 4. So those are the type of things that we do to promote and stay engaged. And stress the managers, you know, on one-on-ones and weekly meetings. If you feel that you see someone struggling, if someone already had a little anxiety, being home is just exasperating that. And reach out to those and, you know, get them with a peer or someone that they collaborate with to check in, so it's not just the manager, and really have that connection at a very personal level. And I think for all of the workforce, it's a deeper dive than it has been historically.
Right, and Toni, I know this was very important to you. Actually, when you talked about yoga, virtual yoga, I'm sure a lot of people that are dialed into this call were laughing or at least smiling, because we did that last Friday as a team, and it was I came away feeling refreshed, and I think everybody else did. I had never done yoga before, so that was one good thing that came out of team building activity such as a yoga session. So that's a great one that you guys implement. And then another thing that's common between what you and Priscilla just mentioned was the surveys that you guys collect from your employees, and make sure that any issues that come across, especially those that are anonymous, that they are being addressed and also being enforced during your one-on-ones. So I'm glad you guys went over that. All right, the next question is for you, Priscilla. Actually, this one's for you, Toni. States have all reopened after the stay-at-home orders were lifted, and some employers are starting to bring people back into the office. What's your organizational approach to reopening the office that will be providing a safe and productive environment when everybody comes back? Now, that might change given the spike that we've seen in the recent week, but that aside, what things have you guys implemented to help ensure that you have a safe and productive work environment once everybody's back?
Well, Farelogix is an essential business, right? So we provide software solutions for the airlines. The airlines have maintained open. So we've always been open, right? So anyone that is working in the office is there because they choose to be. It's a very small amount. I went in last week for the first time in 3 months, and there were 7 of us all together, 2 of them in another building. So we adhere to very strict CDC guidelines about social distancing. We have hand sanitizer pumps all over the building. We've taken chairs out of conference rooms, chairs out of lunch rooms, to make sure that we adhere to social distancing. We promote washing hands. If you don't feel well, do not come into the office. And because we have, like I said, about 200 people generally, and before you come into the office, even if you're someone that comes in every day, you need to notify HR that you will be coming into the building, so that we can monitor the occupancy level and make sure that we have the proper social distancing. We have an office manager that is there every day. And, you know, if someone does come in and they weren't on the list, we need to know, and we need to make sure that we can accommodate them. So, and we follow not only the CDC guidelines, which I'm reading webinars and reading whatever news updates they have, OSHA updates that they come out, but also to our county. Miami County has certain guidelines that they need to adhere to. And so I'm on an email with the property managers just to make sure that the cleaning is done and that we can ensure that anyone that's working in the office has a safe working environment.
That's great. That's very important, especially now that a lot of people are hesitant to go back into the office, and companies have already seen that many people are actually really productive while working remote. So it's an interesting topic, and one that's going to be evolving over the next few months, especially for companies that have never had people working remote. Priscilla, the next question is yours. Let's talk about employee onboarding. Employee onboarding allows companies to build trust with their new hires and also gives them an opportunity to engage them early so that they feel like they are a part of the company's culture and fabric. Can you share some of the effective strategies that you've implemented for employee onboarding, given most people are now working remotely?
Absolutely. So as far as onboarding, so I heard three things. So one is, how do we build trust with new hires? How do we keep them engaged? And how do we incorporate our organizational culture as part of our onboarding process? So when it comes to that, it really comes down to the candidate and the onboarding experience. Having from the first moment that you have that touch point with your new hires or any candidates in general, all through the 90th day of employment, that really is the window of experience, right, that you want to provide to your staff. So given that we are obviously in a remote environment, we've actually hired well over 20 folks in the recent weeks. So I think we've gotten a lot better in onboarding folks remotely because there was a lot of things that we had to change. And given so, we've been able to really enhance our process, from our recruiting to the way that we're posting positions to the way that we're engaging our candidates. We receive easily, 400 resumes a week. So how do we ensure that our processes are in place, that we're, providing feedback to our candidates, that we're making ourselves accessible to the candidates, that we're keeping them, engaged throughout the recruitment process. We do have a few steps across our recruitment process. So we, not only meet with HR, we meet with the hiring manager, but we also have a panel. And those panel interviews are so important because if that person is hired, they have already met 8 folks. They've already created connections with eight to 9 folks upon their transition into working at Health Choice Network. And this is so important because they already immediately find those connections. And we also set the tone while we are in the recruiting phase that this is an interviewing process and a two-way street. So we encourage our candidates to ask questions, to do their due diligence, research, look at our LinkedIn company page, look at our company websites, and get yourself familiarized with our organizational culture. And we speak a lot to it. We speak on our tenure. Health Choice Network is very proud to have a very family-oriented organization, and we have such values that drive us in the business that we're in. And are by hearing that from the different folks, and not just from HR and the HR pitch, to get people reeled into the organization, you get to hear from different people's perspectives, and it really helps folks to understand, who we are and what we're all about. And like that, they're able to interview us too and see, are we a good fit for them and their career path and what they're looking for. In addition to that, once we have, hired someone, we have a very detailed onboarding and training plan. So we work with the hiring manager on identifying, what training opportunities need to take place, what meetings can they attend just as learners, just to get themselves familiarized with the organization. So they come in with already a structured plan of what to expect in their first 2 weeks to 4 weeks of employment. And then taking it a step further, we also have what's called a buddy system. So we assign a person who more than likely they've already met in the panel interview. And this person will take them under their wing and just really help walk them through, their career at Health Choice Network, get them acclimated, provide them, with more information about our vision, our mission, and then be able to resort to that person for any, any needs outside of HR and the hiring managers. But I'll be honest, we have such a great group of associates at Health Choice Network, and we love to celebrate new hires. We make everything, a celebration. So a lot of our folks, will email the new hires upon, we send this blast email communication to staff, and then different team members will reach out to that new hire, introduce themselves, make them feel, that we're a family, that we're in this together, we're gonna help one another in a remote environment. And it's been really, really fruitful to see the sense of interactions that have occurred and bonds that have been created on individuals that have never met each other in person and have only built relationships virtually. And then in addition to that, we also We also do 30, 60, 90-day evaluations, which is important for an onboarding process because we don't want to assess a person only on their 90th day. We want to have multiple touch points, and each touch point on the 90th day, or I'm sorry, on the 30th day, on the 60th day, there's a few criteria that need to be met by the employee and also by the hiring manager. And that's just to ensure that, you know, we're checking off all the boxes, that we're ensuring that, you know, these new hires have everything that they need, that they really have the resources and the tools so that we can help them be successful in their careers at Health Choice Network. And that's been very, very helpful and effective for us as we've onboarded quite a few folks in the last few weeks, and we keep growing so that, you know, we're keep enhancing our processes, but that's been very effective for us so far.
Priscilla, when I was looking at this question, the one thing that jumps to my head was I've been to the Hcn building, their office building, and it's one of the best looking buildings I've seen as far as work environment. The people that are joining now and everything being remote, they're probably missing out on that. How are you guys making sure that they are aware of the kind of culture that you guys have built in the office and how you guys are different than most of the companies? You guys mainly operate, from what I saw, as a very futuristic IT company, the way you guys set up your office and all that. How do you guys make sure that new employees that are working remote feel like they are part of that?
That is a very good question. And thank you for the compliment. We are very proud of the workspace that we work in. So at Health Choice Network, we are an open living office concept, which means we have open area seating that equates to all, you know, walks of life. So we have from high tops to workstations to collaboration areas, and it's all an open, you know, living office environment. So that really allows for collaboration. It really facilitates innovation, creativity, and it's kind of hard to be able to really speak to that when you're onboarding folks remotely. So we've had to get a little bit creative. So we've used a lot of marketing. We have, you know, video footages that take us and walk us through the whole entire building. From the moment that we speak to candidates, we let them know that we are an office living concept. Now, granted, we're all working remotely now, but eventually when things get a little bit better, we'll be allowed to go back into the office. And when we do, we want to make sure that they're comfortable with working in that kind of environment. So we start talking to them from the very beginning about this. We allow other employees during the panel to really speak to that kind of environment and how it's impacted and helped them individually in their departments. And then once we've onboarded them and we have our new hire orientation, we have our operations team that walks them through a virtual, they'll be in the office and then they walk us through a virtual tour and we just get them excited. But we really rely on our marketing and really share and highlight the wonderful benefits that we offer at Health Choice Network, in addition to the beautiful workspace that we're blessed to be able to work in. So great question. I miss the office.
I bet you do. It's a really beautiful building, having been there. And for anybody that has an opportunity to go check it out, I strongly encourage you do. You will be very impressed. Toni, in your estimation, how will the workforce adapt to the changes brought about by COVID-19? And what examples can you share with us based on your analysis of the future trend?
Okay. Well, companies need to adapt, right? The old way of thinking, and when I say old, I mean 6 months ago, because no one could prepare for this. So about 6 months ago, you know, the old way of thinking, which was needing to have people in the office to be productive, has been proven wrong. And at Farelogix, we work in collaborative teams, you know, agile teams, and they are just as, if not more productive. They're very collaborative when they're working. So now we are asking, through surveys and just asking managers to talk to their people, how do they want to return to the office based on collaboration time they need for meetings, also meeting with clients when clients do start coming back in. And associates are really feeling empowered to choose their work location. And we're finding that empowered associates are happier, they're more engaged, and definitely more productive. They're setting their meeting times. They are working with, you know, development is now working with QA stronger than they ever have. And they know what their schedules are. They know what their hours are. And it's working for them. It's allowing them to have some freedom to be productive. And, you know, at leadership, we're empowering them to do it. And it shows. It shows in the deliverables, it shows in the attitude, and it shows in the willingness. And it's already proving to be a pretty interesting lesson as we gather the data that for associates during this time, their job responsibilities are changing for a number of reasons. And the workforce needs to really expand their ideas of their job responsibilities and their value to an organization. A major focus for me prior to COVID-19 was recruiting. And we're pausing right now in some active recruiting for various moments, you know, at the moment for various reasons. So the biggest hat that I'm wearing right now is within other HR functions. So I'm looking at skills and talent that we have already within the organization and plugging in these people into gaps that we have and keeping them engaged and asking them, you know, there was someone who's a BA who used to be a developer who now has an opportunity to roll up their sleeves and do development again and just build on some of that. Or maybe you majored in journalism and you can raise your hand into the marketing department and say, hey, I can help with internal communication, right? But I think now's the time to do that and be flexible. And I think that, you know, folks can really find a way to add value in different ways to the organization.
Well said.
Thank you. It's that shift from management, and it's also the shift from employees, because I don't like the word employees. It's really weird. I say associates. I don't know why, but I feel like everyone's my partner. And so look at how you can add value. Think about where you thrive. And sometimes when your job responsibility is limited and you don't always have the opportunity to look outside what you're doing, now's the opportunity to do it. And we see you. You may not be in the office, but we see you. And we're proud of you, and we understand the value that you bring to the organization.
And Toni, you mentioned something really important that I find interesting, where you've taken on a lot more roles given the shift in how operations are ongoing because of the COVID-19 pandemic. That's one thing that I'm a strong proponent of, is people upskilling and getting new skills, especially during this time where they have extra time. You don't have to spend hours going to work or coming back in traffic. So you can use that time to learn something new, so that once this is all over and the pandemic passes, everybody comes out of it with new skills, and they can be able to either move up in their organization or at least take on more responsibilities within their current organization. So it's funny that you should say that you're also doing that. I would never think that someone in HR is also taking on sales responsibilities, but this is just a clear example of this happening across all different spectrum of the industries.
Thank you. Well, being a recruiter for the organization, I'm bringing people in. So I've already established a relationship with them. I know a little bit about their history. Often I know what their hobbies are. And so if there's an opportunity for someone that may have a passion in something else they do to help out in the organization, it's great for the company, it's great for the associate. And, you know, I think it's a win-win. It's really a win to look within and ask people what's going to empower them, and how can they upskill. And I think we'll talk about that a little bit when we talk about some of the learning and development piece, but ask those questions. And those are the types of survey questions that are relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Priscilla, many companies had learning and development initiatives on site prior to the pandemic. Could you share with us how you are now enabling your workforce to continue learning and developing new skills, given you've lost that personal and physical aspect of it, at least for the foreseeable future?
Absolutely. So as an educator, you know, it's very important to ensure that education and learning doesn't stop, whether we're, you know, in a remote environment or we're in person. It's important that these opportunities still exist. So we've worked really closely with either academic partners or organizations that we've worked with in the past that have provided with free webinars, free trainings that we've offered to our staff. In addition to that, we have an outstanding program that we've had for about 2 to 3 years, and we call it the Hcn Learn Sessions. And that's basically a forum that allows for either internal employees or external folks to come in and train for 30 minutes. And it's done on a weekly basis. So it runs either between 30 minutes to an hour. And that is a time where we can transfer knowledge. If someone goes to a conference, the expectation is for them to come back and bring and transfer that knowledge back to folks. So we've had to get creative, given that conferences have, obviously been paused because of COVID and everything going on. So we've really relied on either our internal staff, resources, academic partners, and making sure that the topics are relevant to, to the workforce today, and just continuing to share that knowledge. So we've ensured to keep that, ongoing, and whatever trainings we've held on an annual basis for compliance standpoint, we make sure that, we're still are offering those, but we just get creative. So if we've, been used to doing in-person trainings for half a day, the expectation's not to hold a training for half a day on a, this kind of virtual environment. So we just get creative. We ensure that we keep folks engaged through these learning opportunities, that we do activities, that we, find some ways that we can be very tactful in what we're trying to educate and train on, so that it's relevant to their workforce today, and can really make an impact.
Toni, the same question for you. How do you guys approach that?
Well, prior to COVID, the day you start at Farelogix, whether you're an intern, full-time, part-time, you're given a LinkedIn Learning account, which is awesome. And our orientation and onboarding, we use the platform for the digital learning. We have management training, some other things quarterly that just hasn't come up yet. But there are assigned courses and content that we have. But associates, this is their LinkedIn Learning account. So they're encouraged to take any courses they feel will enhance their current skills or learn some new ones. Many of us, myself included, have designations. So there are some of the courses in LinkedIn Learning you can are affiliated with HCR, if you know that, our PMP certifications. And I often go through LinkedIn Learning and look for those, and I blast them out to people that I know have a PMP or have, ICIL or whatever it is, and say, hey, if you go to LinkedIn Learning, you can get some credit. There's so many that we need to do. But, unfortunately, due to current situations, we had to put a pause on our subscription to LinkedIn Learning right now. But there are so many online courses that people can take. It doesn't take a lot of research. They're free. I reached out to some of them and said, hey, can you pilot this? I have about 10 people I think could use it. And they say, yes, just give us some feedback. There are programs that were $500, $600 or $30 or $40, or some are completely free. So if you have the time, if unfortunately you've been furloughed or your work schedule has changed, there are a lot of free learning opportunities to take advantage of. I post some on LinkedIn. If you now join me and you're part of my LinkedIn network, I'm often posting things out. So take the opportunity to upskill, and I look for those things. They're there. Hoping we'll have our LinkedIn Learning, or with a new acquisition, we may have a bigger platform. But at Farelogix, we are very pro learning, and educating yourself and upscaling yourself, not just to be a part of our organization, but just the overall person. We care. We're a big family, and we want to see you excel.
And
great. Priscilla, Priscilla, go ahead.
So Toni, that is such a wonderful thing, and I'm very happy to hear that you all are doing that as well. At Health Choice Network, we have a similar program with a tuition reimbursement program, and going back to the whole celebration piece, and really being able to share with others the accomplishments that have been made with folks. I mean, we had, I think, 4 of our associates, complete their master's degrees that they were able to obtain through, through the help that we provide to our associates through the tuition reimbursement program. And you're absolutely right. It's really just about branching out. And I always tell my HR professional friends, don't be afraid to ask. There's a lot of organizations that want to help and don't know how to help others. And so it's just opening up your network of colleagues and your friends, and being able to just see what free learning opportunities, they have. And especially for those who, have been furloughed or laid off, unfortunately, what a beautiful time to really just upskill and get that knowledge of new things and new certifications. And items that can help them in their career path. But even for those who, you know, are still working, you know, this is still a wonderful opportunity to leverage these free resources that can assist with just obtaining new knowledge. So I wanted to just commend you all for doing that and share what we've been doing too.
And also YouTube, and this is funny, I am not an Excel guru. I find myself needing to keep track of more things in spreadsheets. So I went to YouTube, and then I found another resource which just kind of walked me through how to, you know, perfect those pivot tables and do some other things. And I know some other people that don't always do reporting, and I shared it. Hey, did you know you can do this? And share it with people. And Zoom meetings, I didn't do them all the time. I did a little quick tutorials to make sure that I was making them, you know, the most productive and efficient and professional that I could, and share that with the organization. When I learn anything new, I love to share it. So I recommend that people do it. If you find a new course that you're excited about or passionate about, share it with your whole network. Share it with the people you work with. Share it with your family. There's a lot of free resources out there, and it's just really a click of, or a question on Google.
Right, and I think the overarching theme from this discussion is that learning is important, and everybody should be taking advantage of, especially the free courses that are available. I know I did that this morning. I signed up for a leadership course that's always paid for, but this morning I saw that they had a free offer for a short period of time, so I took advantage of that. So anybody out there that's looking to get better at anything that they do, look for those courses online. I think Priscilla and Toni gave a few examples that you guys can adapt in what you do, and you will come out better after this pandemic is over. Yeah. Priscilla, there is a potential for employee burnout from working remotely full-time because of the lack of delineation between work and being at home, and that's resulting in longer work hours. And I think we talked about that already. What recommendations do you have that you can share with us on how to enhance the physical and mental well-being of employees while working remotely?
So that is very relevant topic, right? I think we could all attest that we have experienced this within our workplace at some given point, especially in the beginning. I think now that, you know, we've been working remotely for approximately 4 months now, I think now we're getting to the phase where we're getting acclimated and we're more in a routine, because our routine was quickly disrupted, right? To Toni's point earlier, you know, we had to change overnight from working in the office, having a structure, to not being allowed to do anything except stay in our homes and learn to balance all these components at once. So with employee burnout, you know, again, I rely on surveys, and it's being able to gauge and see, you know, and catching it before it gets bad. Because, you know, ultimately you don't want to lose employees because they're feeling that sense of burnout or they're working excessive hours. So from a leadership standpoint, it's important that we're keeping that pulse and that we are identifying, you know, how long are our employees working? If we see that they're a little off or they're not, you know, they're silent, like that saying goes, you know, when your most enthusiastic employees become silent, there's a problem. So as leaders, we have that sense of obligation to make sure that we're asking the question, that we're reaching out, say, hey, you know, I noticed that you're a little off. Is everything okay? Being flexible, allowing that sense of, you know, being adaptive in balancing the things that they're all working on, minimizing, you know, the workload if need be. So it's really important that we're just keeping that pulse and just gauging and seeing what changes do we need to make, and continuously making these changes to help our employees feel not that sense of like overpowering, you know, have to produce work at all times. But in addition to that, leaders also have to be, you know, mindful of what tone we're setting as well. So if we're working excessive hours, then we may be providing an unrealistic expectation that, you know, your employees should also be working around the clock. So it's making sure that we take time, you know, for our mental health as well, and that we're taking a step back and taking care of ourselves. Self-care is so important. And to Toni's point earlier during our conversation, you know, we also work very closely with our benefit carrier and our benefit brokers, and they offer tons of free resources, free webinars on mental health awareness, being able to, you know, just provide that, you know, that time for our associates to just, you know, take time off, and we very much encourage that. We run reports on a biweekly basis. We encourage leaders to, promote that PTO. Since we have such rich benefit programs, we want to make sure that we're taking advantage. But for those employers, I would just ask, your benefit carriers what programs they have offering EAPs, and just keep sharing that information with staff. And whether they, take advantage of it or not, it's still our obligation to share it. And just making sure that we're just taking a pulse, I think it's what's most important, and modeling our behaviors and taking care of ourselves, of course.
And if I'd like to add to that, actually, Priscilla, it sounds like your organization is fantastic. We work for really great companies. And I just, as a caveat to that, I think what's a little bit different focus with managers, and managers always care about their people. We're a big family here, but really connecting with them now, because many of us are in the same boat, right? We're having to look at homeschooling our kids, maybe caring for an elderly relative. So managers are now either relating or bare minimum empathizing and understanding, and looking at, for some people that have small kids, the most productive time for them might be 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. or 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. So the managers aren't asking those questions about what time it is. They're saying, what's going to work for you so it doesn't make you nuts, right? We promote PTO and say, take a mental health day. Also, this is summertime. People are usually taking a week off or 2 weeks off, and, the kids are in camp or they're going to visit relatives. We have a very diverse background, where summers often for our associates are a summer in Brazil, or 3 weeks in China, or 3 weeks in India or Canada. And so we're saying, still take that time for yourself and your family. You can only accrue so many PTO days. Start to use them. Try not to burn yourself out. Have a conversation with your manager. I fortunately have had at least one work at home day, probably for maybe the past 10 years in my career. And so some best practices I share is separate. This is going to sound silly. We live in Florida. We wear shorts and t-shirts. I have a set of shorts and t-shirts only for work. I don't wear them on the weekends. I don't go anywhere else. They're my work clothes. I compartmentalize them. I get up in the morning. I have my coffee. I have my cereal. I'm fortunate I have an office. But there are times my office is my dining room or my bedroom. And what I did was I did not turn on and log on until I had my breakfast and my coffee, and I was ready to start the workday. Here's the hardest part. At the end of the day, just find a stopping point. Find your stopping point that works for you, and log off. It's better for your computer too. Log off and walk away and start that balance. And once you start those habits, you will start to have some flexibility. Life changes, you have things at home, but I think if you can compartmentalize, and maybe my coffee and breakfast would be my normal commute time, but it's something that gives me barriers so that I can have a life and not feel guilty about logging off at the end of the day. It's my stopping point, and you need to give yourself that.
That's very important, and I think everybody should take a lesson from that. Is just make sure that you're finding a way to put that stopping point, and your work doesn't bleed over into your personal life. If that happens, things tend to go south, not just in your work life, but also your personal life. So that's a very important aspect. I want to jump into Q&A. We have a lot of very good questions, so let me just start picking through one of them. This one will be for you, Priscilla. With so many applicants, how do you pick the best applicant, and what are you looking for specifically, and what are some of the limitations that applicants should keep in mind when applying?
Sure. So I'm going to answer the last piece first. So it is important that candidates have up-to-date information. So, making sure that their LinkedIn page is updated, that they have an updated photo, and that their information is relevant, so that it makes it a little bit easier to have more information from the very beginning. But it really just depends, because at Health Choice Network, we are such a diverse organization. So we have, a great number of folks that are IT focused. We have, a quality department, we have financial services. So we have an array of different items that we're looking for. So I always recommend candidates to do their due diligence, research the organization, make sure that, they're prepared to ask questions, because again, we would like to foster that environment of interviewing one another. So it's important that they, have a background of what Health Choice Network, is, and the type of community community that we serve, so that they're very acclimated to our values and then can compare it to themselves. But in addition to that is just, being honest. I think it's important. At times we've had folks that are, have shied away from saying that they were laid off or furloughed because maybe they've been embarrassed or maybe it's just new information for them. So it's just important to be honest and set those expectations from the very beginning. And we'll walk them through the whole recruitment process, ensure that we're, being very timely in whether they will be proceeding with the recruiting process or if we've decided to entertain other candidates. We want to make sure that we provide them with that feedback so that can help them in their job search as they're looking for their best, their next home or their best fit.
Great. Toni, I have one question from you from a member of the audience. Aside from traditional tools such as LinkedIn and job boards, et cetera, what strategies do you deploy to attract the top talent to your organization? Also, do you utilize any external services to help with this heavy undertaking?
Okay. So I think talented people surround themselves with talented people. So I love employee referrals. I utilize my network constantly. And I think a network should be something that we're all feeding, not when you're looking for jobs. If there's a company you have in the back of your mind you want to know about and you meet somebody, reach out to them right then and there. You don't even have to be looking for a job. But I love employee referrals. I not so much job boards, but I do a lot of searching. I'm a hunter. I love it. I think that, to Priscilla's point, your LinkedIn profile should mirror your resume. Mm-hmm. And when a resume comes in, I love a quick link. Your email address should be a link. I can be jazzed about your resume and already send you an email right there and there to start talking to you or connect with you before I finish your resume. And your LinkedIn profile should also be on your resume. And I tell you why, what can stand out for me is I can have 3 resumes with the exact same skill set. And through LinkedIn, I see maybe you're a member of the chess club, and I wish I played chess, but we may have a networking club. Maybe you volunteer for something. Maybe you're on a board. I just kind of got a little bit more of your story, because recruiting isn't just about asking questions. It's about building a relationship, having a rapport, and having communication. So I look on LinkedIn. I do. I search it. I have great relationships with agencies. It's a cost to us. And so we try not to use them that much. I have a very short list of successful ones that I work with, and we have an agreement that we arrange. But overall, I'm charged with keeping costs down with recruiting. So it's kind of a last option for me. But, the relationships I have are because these agencies already know the people. They've worked with them before. And I value that kind of like an employee referral or an associate referral as well, if we can work out something. But I'm a hunter, and I love employee referrals. If you know someone who works at Farelogix, we have a lot of our hires, a big percentage of employee referrals. We have a great bonus program for that. And with employee referrals, it may not be the current job I have right now, but I will get in touch with you. As recruiters, we are charged with filling a job as quickly as possible with the exact skill set. Mm-hmm. So the applicant pool has exponentially grown. But honestly, our focus is to find the people that are going to be able to come in there and, have a shorter walk, right? Sort of ramp up time to get it done. So anyone that's looking, I want to tell you to be specific. Like you said, do the research about the company. Don't apply for 7 jobs. If you are a jack of all trades, God love you. But I don't know if you're a BA, IT exec, a receptionist, all of those things. And it cuts down on the rejection you get, right? Do your homework, apply to the jobs that you're going to get a response to. And I think it makes you feel better, and it can start a dialogue. Even if it's not the exact job, somebody's going to reach out to you and connect. And it might not be that exact job, but you're starting a dialogue to be in someone's network. So employee referrals. I do have an applicant tracking system that blasts out to Glassdoor and LinkedIn and other things. And LinkedIn has a great program. They send you the highest percentage of people. And I do look at those first, but then I go back to other skills and see how active you are in LinkedIn, and you stand out a little bit more to me. You're more than just a name on a resume.
That's important. Yeah, I was going to say, we have some really great questions. I'm loving this. You guys rock. Priscilla, you're going to love this. somebody asked, what are your recommendations on resume writing to make sure my resume gets looked at? And also, is there an ideal length for how many pages a resume should have? Is a brief information enough, or should we go detail level on the resume? What are your thoughts on that?
So that is $1 million question, but I will speak from my experience and my vantage point. So certainly for resumes, you want to put the information that's most relevant. So, focus on key accomplishments. The responsibilities is one component, but really just take the opportunity to highlight, what are those key accomplishments that you held in that role at that organization that impacted ROI, finances, any programs that you may have initiated or been a part of. Those are all really important components that really speak to you as an employee and the contributions that you had to the organization. Regarding skills, it's important to highlight the skills that you have knowledge of. But I don't know if, Toni, you've experienced this specifically with IT, but there's, a lot of times where we may have, some knowledge on a specific skill or in a specific software or tool. But then, when we start having the dialogue and discussion, there may be some gaps in that knowledge. So it's important that, as a prospective candidate, that you're being honest in the skills that you truly are listing there on your resume, because we will hold you accountable for those skills that you've listed. And as far as length is concerned and overall look, I'd like to focus on the content. Yes, feel free to be bold and modern, and these beautiful resume templates are great, but it's really what story, to Toni's point, what story is it that you're trying to relate and share? What kind of summary do you have that introduces a little bit about you and speaks to what contributions you want to put forward in a new organization. And then as far as length is concerned, obviously keeping it, as minimal as possible. 1 to 2 pages is obviously optimal, but, it just depends on, the person's experience, but just focus more on the accomplishments, on the contributions that you had with the organization. And, in addition to the resume is just one way of communicating who you are. Be bold, reach out, to the HR team and reach out to the organization, confirm that they received your application, start building that rapport, and that relationship with the organization is important, because you'll be able to, one, expedite if there's, dozens of resumes have been received, you're able to kind of expedite the recruiter or the HR person to take a look at your resume and confirm that they received it. But at the same time, you're also building that rapport and sharing that interest. You're not just applying to 100 places without wanting to, to go that extra mile. Some companies prefer cover letters. So there's just an array of different things that you can do, but you want to think about what do I need to share? What do I need to say to stand out and share what I'm, my biggest strengths are, what my biggest contributions are, and how can I highlight that in a document, and will that document be a good reflection of me? So looking at spelling, grammar, all those different things, making sure you check off all those boxes is important, because that one document is a reflection of you. So you want to make sure that it is a positive one, and that it'll be well received with the positions or the companies that you're applying to.
Great.
Yeah, Priscilla,
we have time for.
I just want to expand on something that Priscilla said, which is so key, is about people put a bunch of keywords. Oh, I was saying that I want to expand on something, Priscilla, that was so key, is people put in keywords, and and you lose authenticity and you lose credibility with us. If you've touched something or understand it, you put it in there, but like you said, we're going to find out very quickly you don't. And I've had honest conversations with candidates to say, hey, take SOAP UI off. You don't have experience with that. You're going to lose credibility. Accentuate what you do have experience with. It can be something similar, but don't put down what you don't do, because you lose credibility. And it's unfortunate, because, everything else is good. Just be honest. I've had exposure to it. It's something you can have in a conversation, but don't put it into your resume to represent you if it's not accurate.
Right. Toni, the last question is for you before we wrap it up. What is your opinion when a candidate has the experience, but your company has an educational requirement that the candidate does not have? Do you overlook that? And the reason I'm asking that is because I know a few weeks ago, Elon Musk put out a statement that he does not require his employees to have a high school degree as long as they can demonstrate that they can do the job. What's your take on that?
I don't have that in our job description. I think people's lives take different turns and their education is for various reasons. And if I do have hiring managers, and I'm not saying I've had it at Farelogix, but I've been recruiting a long time, it says, no, they have to have an Ivy League degree. And I said, well, then you're not looking for diversity. No, but I say you're not looking for diversity, because diversity isn't just about race. There's age, education level, background. I look at the whole person, and I am challenged with giving a diverse slate of candidates. And that can be someone that maybe didn't have a college degree for whatever reason, but they've been working for 10 years doing exactly what you're looking for them to do. I don't think it should be a disqualifier. I'm the facilitator, not the decision maker when it comes to hiring. I make that very clear. But if I've established a relationship with you, we've had a dialogue, and you've shown that you're qualified to do this job, I will advocate for you. And I'm not going to let that stop me.
Great. Well, we're almost out of time. I think we can all agree that this has been great. There's a lot of important insight that you both have shared. So thank you all for being with us today. And for all the participants that sent in their questions, we really appreciate that. Our next webinar will be on the 17th of July, so please register for that as well. Other than that, thank you all for joining. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for letting me be a part of this.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, Toni.
Bye, Priscilla.
Yes. Bye.